It is hot as they're not even monetizing my stuff anymore. So I'll just say it. It's hot as fuck right now in LA. Good thing we have a pool here. We have a pool and we've been swimming all day with my son. Sometimes I just got to really like look at what, I was in prison a year ago. I've done a lot in a year. I wrote a screenplay. I sold a screenplay. Got my documentary greenlit for the second time. Now it's done. It's coming out. It's in post production right now. I'm supposed to premiere at cons this month. Um, got a place, got a car, got my Patreon cracking. Remember when I used to be like, please send me GoFundMe's, and I don't need to do that anymore. Like I've actually like made revenue. Got a new book coming out this summer. I put an album out this year with Johnny Depp on it, and Tommy Chong, and Boston George, and Freeway Ricky Ross, and Nick Stahl, and Dirt Nasty, and just a lot of cool shits happened this year. I got to take stock and just be like, wow, I got to be proud of that. I was in prison a year ago, and people keep complaining, oh, get back to the prison stories. I don't want to be a prison channel. Honestly, I think that shit's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, there's people that do that specifically, and that's great. Uh, I have different aspirations. I'm not saying they're better, but I just kind of want to do different stuff with my life. I do have a third prison term, and it's really interesting because they were mixing PC with GP. Imagine how that worked. How does that work? Didn't work well, and I was like, right, hey, let's do an experiment. Let's just throw protective custody with general population. It didn't go well. I was in like 12 riots in a very short amount of time. But prison stuff, I mean, honestly, I'm like at the point where I never plan on going back. I don't do illegal stuff anymore. I don't really like that whole culture. I mean, when you're around prison people a lot, like they're the fakest people ever. They're so fake. They're fake. We've talked about it a million times. The skin is, I hate black people. They're disgusting. They're not even people. And they have like mostly rap in their catalog of shit that they listen to, stuff like that. Um, just fake. It's gossipy, and like most people that I know that are like all like indoctrinated in the prison stuff aren't doing anything with their lives. I mean, call me soft because I want to be a good dad. I want to be married. I'd rather bend my hot wife over a staircase every day at 3 o'clock and fuck her than take group showers with a bunch of dudes, drink fermented bacteria wine, inject black tar heroin that's been in Paisa's assholes. I don't know. Life I'm living is a little better than that these days. And I just don't want to like glorify it or drug stuff, I hear people say that all the time, like, man, you make heroin sound pretty rad. Not gonna lie. Stuff you've been through is cool. Girls and drugs. Girls and drugs. No. My life has sucked. My life when I was doing drugs was the worst. It was horrible. I didn't accomplish anything. I didn't do anything. The only time I've ever accomplished anything in my life is when I've been sober. I lost my ex-girlfriend to an overdose. I lost one of my best friends, Paul, to an overdose. Drugs are fucking lame, and I'm proud to say that I'm not on any. I got off parole like, I don't know, a month ago. Smoked herb for a little bit, and I'm back to not doing anything again. Just working out, living a positive, healthy lifestyle. I'm getting shit done. I got a lot going for me right now. Stuff that, I mean, I tell you guys various times when oh, I just got a deal or I just did this. I do have a lot of stuff on the, I got a lot of irons in the fire, shall we say. So I don't know. That's kind of like where I'm at. I'll get to the third prison term because it's interesting. And I realize that there's people but like, what do we do after that? I have a lot of stuff that we haven't gone over. It's probably like, I don't know, 15, 20 series that I could do that I haven't really gone into. I'm doing doing multiple other series on Patreon right now. I'm doing a Florida series where I go into like my entire time when I was there, when I did time, the Mike Virgin thing, who we found a weird a weird connection too. I'm going to do a whole like edited video about that. I'm going to do that poker video. I'm going to start doing workout videos, some prison related stuff, but like I really want to move out of that typecast, you know. I don't consider myself a prison channel. And I realized that a lot of people that follow my channel, subscribe to it, probably got here from other prison channels, you know, Big Herc or 23 and 1. You know, I have a lot of Al Profit guys on here. I got some people from Simon Rex, and I owe my dues to all of them, absolutely. But it's not really what I want to keep doing. You know, like I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to get interesting people on, and that's pretty much it. And then I'm going to focus on my writing career because that's the career I was in before all this. I'll still make videos, and there's so much different storylines on Patreon. Like I just put the Dave video up tonight. I keep finding like good stuff. And I just got a hard drive that I sent to the director, and he's going to put, it's a 3 terabyte hard drive, and he's literally like filling it up with footage throughout my whole life. So I'm going to start putting a lot of stuff on Patreon, probably some stuff on here, so you guys can get a little taste of what it looks like. And that's it. So today we're going to start a new series. It's called Breakdown. It's the series right after Pimping and Pandering. So we're still in the same storyline, and this is the prelude before my 3rd prison term. Please like, comment, subscribe. Check out patreon.com/Ryan Leone. 10 cents a day, you'll get early access, and eventually some of those other storylines will trickle down. Plus you get some extra photographs, you get videos, and every tier that you go up, you get more stuff. In the $10 tier, you get the Florida series. $20 tier, you're going to get the China series when I was in China. Then I'm going to do a Parting with Celebrities series. And then the $100 tier, you know, you get a personalized call or Skype call with me once a month. You get like a nice gift. I sent sinister lithographs out. It's like the big one for this month. Next month we're probably going to do exclusive UGG boots that I get from one of my good friends. Joe has been helping me out with that. And you know, there's incentives to be in the various tiers. So thank you guys for supporting that. Let's get into the story. It is so hot today. I'm like dying. I was in the pool, and then I did an interview with Mickey Avalon today, and like, so I had to come in here, and I was like, oh my God, I'm like dying, like drenched in sweat. We bought an air conditioner yesterday, but that's upstairs. So like all the cold air's upstairs, and then like I'm in this little death trap in here, slaving away making content because I'm a bitch. Little bitch. Yeah. All right. So the breakdown. So I think where we ended the last video, we were talking about how I had we got a sonogram for Nico. We didn't have his name yet, but we found out that he was boy. We did a gender reveal, and they found a hole in his heart, you know, the doctor. He was a really nice guy, kind of an eccentric doctor. You know, he'd always make like really weird jokes, you know. Well, my chick's like legs would be like spread open. He'd be like, oh, look at this slippery vagina. You know, he like made like Jim Carrey type jokes. He'd be like, that's a seal like slick vajay. I'd be like, what the fuck? How is that appropriate, dude? And he'd be like, huh? And he was just like a really happy guy. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like you would think that, you know, that it'd be more offensive than it was, but it was, I don't know. You ever know like guys that can just kind of get away with stuff like that? Like, damn, homie, your chick's asshole is fucking pink as a fresh laid brick. And you're like, any other guy, you just knock the fuck out. But, you know, there's certain guys that just can get away with it. He was one of those guys. So he was always like joking with us. But then we went there, you know, for the gender reveal. And when they did the sonogram, they found that there was a hole in our unborn son's heart. That was pretty like, you know, difficult for us to, that was a difficult thing to swallow. I mean, you know, when our son was conceived, we were both drinking very abnormally, a couple fifths a day. You know, that's not normal. And there was a big debate. You know, we talked about this before, like, well, is our child going to come out normal? Is he going to have, what is it called? Fetal alcohol syndrome? Yeah, something like that. I know this, neonatal deformities from, from alcohol or from drugs, because there's toxins that can, God, I don't know all the terms, but when a girl's pregnant and her eggs fertilized, obviously if she has toxins, eventually it goes to the unborn child and complications can arise. Alcohol is one of the worst things. And we're really scared that our child was going to be messed up because of that. My dad was actually the one that said that. He's like, and he's got a master's in public health. He's not a doctor, but he went to school for a long time, medical related stuff, and he went on to be an occupational healthcare consultant. And he was like, there's no way that the baby can come out normal, considering how completely fucked up you guys are. I was like, oh, thanks, Dad. I was like, you're talking about that bitch, right? And it's like, no, both of you. It's like your sperm's probably just like polluted too. And I was like, yeah, fair enough. So when the doctor said that there was a hole in the heart, well, we said, well, what can that mean? And he said that it could be, and that's one time he wasn't joking. And I think that's what made us more freaked out, is that he was always joking. Like, would you look at the flap on these vulvas? It's almost dramatic. He's always saying like weird ass shit like that, like off kilter stuff. And then he's like, oh my, there's a hole in the heart. And we're like, what does that mean? He's like, well, it can be Down syndrome, or it can lead to serious heart complications, you know, um, throughout the kid's life. Those are the first two things. Or it can just close naturally. And we're like, well, what are the chances that it'll close naturally? He's like, it's like, 50-50 at this point. We're like, damn, really? 50-50? So obviously, it was disconcerting to us. I mean, to say the least, we're pretty concerned about it. And Karina's and I relationship was not exactly good. Now, remember, when she was an alcoholic, she was pretty, like, I'd caught her doing sketchy shit, like talking to her ex and like hanging out with other guys and just being shady. I mean, we were both drunks, but I'm usually pretty loyal until like a girl does stuff like that to me, like my ex-wife. She was pretty shady, and I started butt fucking hookers. And that's it. That's the end of the video. Palabra. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So, you know, it's not like I went off and did shady shit to her back. I mean, I guess talking to other girls, stuff like that. But what it did do is it made me feel like the relationship wasn't genuine. Like, it didn't really matter. Like, I had more of like the attitude, like, okay, she wants to keep the kid, so I'm going to stick with what I said, and I'm going to be a good father regardless. But that doesn't mean that I have to have any sort of investment in this relationship with her, because I didn't trust her. I mean, that trust was breached, and I'm like, I'm already a paranoid person. you know you know you know the type. I'm the kind of guy that smokes crack at hotels, and like, I go to the parking lot, I'm like, oh my god, every license plate is then from California is blue. It has a blue backplate. They're marked. Um, that's just the color that the DMV issues in California. Shut the fuck up. All of them the same. What do you think? I'm stupid? I'm flushing the drugs. What? Don't be an idiot. I'm like, flush it, and then I'm like, oh my god, what did I do? And then and I'm like, when you're playing like a video game when you're a kid and your parents like distract you and you like die. You're like playing Mario and you like jump like off the cliff and you're like, you killed me. That's like how I am when I do something stupid on drugs. Like, I flush the drugs. I'm like, look at what you made me do, you stupid bitch. Like, you did that. I didn't do that. What was the point? I'm paranoid. So I was already paranoid, about women. I always think they're cheating on me. So when all that happened, we made up, and she, like, I'll be emphatic on this point. She's an amazing person sober. On alcohol, she's not. Uh, she's become showgirls on alcohol. That's like the PG-13 way of saying it. She's horrible. She's a horrible, horrible, horrible drunk. I'm not the best on drugs or alcohol either. I'm pretty bad myself. So when the thing with the baby happened and we found out there was a hole in the heart, kind of brought us together momentarily. Now at this point, like I said last time, I had moved into the gay psychic's unicorn barn, his bedroom. You know, Jeff had 2 bedrooms and I had moved into that one. And I think we got like a bed on, we got like a king size mattress on Craigslist, and Zach was paying for it. He's like, yeah, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it while we make the documentary. We also had outside funding now. We had Max paying for some of it, and we had pitched it to other people. Where do we find more money? I think Zach he had some people, yeah, skateboarding people that had owned like a skateboarding company were putting some money into it. I forget. There was other money besides just Max. So we had enough money to actually like start making the film. It's not like we had like 100 or 150,000, but we had like 40 or 50 grand to play with. And some of it was Zach's own money. And Zach was kind of just using some of that money to facilitate me in that time being, because I was the talent. And that made me arrogant as fuck, you know? Like, I'd get in if I ever got in a fight with like Karina or my parents, like, shut up, I'm the talent, you're not. They're like, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm the talent. I get paid just for being me. What do you have? You're pregnant? You think that's cool? That's not cool. You're not the talent. And that's like really like when I think she started having a lot of resentments towards me and this like new like found arrogance that I had, because just a month before I was like dumpster diving for Lotto's Second Chance Act. I would have like tomato stains on my, like, I was wearing like cargo shorts that I'd had from high school. It's like the only clothes I had, and it had like tomato stains on it. And around that time, um, one of my friends had given me like a pound of like shitty weed because I didn't have like spending money. So now I just had like this weed that I was so cliche dirtbag, cargo shorts in 2017, cargo shorts. Who the fuck wears that? Cargo shorts, black wife beater, black G-Shock watch. I still have that watch. Where? Oh. I had to. That's the G-Shock from that period. Just tacky shit, right? And I would like go around Santa Barbara, and I'd like go to gas stations. I was so shady with my little wife. I'd be like, "Hey, you want to buy some buds?" People would be like, "Check this out." And it wasn't good weed either. I'd like take a handful out and be like, "Here." I was, the type. I was like really like pushy. Be like, "No, man, I'm cool." I'd be like, "Here, look at it," and they, okay, and they'd like touch it, and I'd be like, "Okay, now you owe me money." No, once you touch it, you owe me money. I can't take that back. Mm-mm. You touched it, you buy it. Like, how much? Like, how much do you have? They're like, I have like $6. Well, give me it. Give me it. Snatch and put in my pocket. And that was like how I was getting my spending money at the time. So I was living at Jeff's, I was wearing cargo shorts. I was selling weed. I thought that I was like the center of attention because I was the talent of the documentary. And I had Zach, who was basically facilitating everything, and then I had this guy Dave, who was like my fake agent. And this is around the time that the thing with Nico, or with my unborn son, happened, where we found out that he had a hole in his heart. So it was like a really weird time. As soon as that happened, I started getting, I think, like emotionally unstable. Like maybe that was like the catalyst that kind of kicked it off, or maybe it was just a combination of everything. Because, like I said, we'd be going to court, and they'd be putting a lot of pressure on me to sign a plea agreement. Now, the thing that was going on was I was going to those therapy sessions with federal probation that they were mandating me. They were drug testing me. I was shooting Suboxone every day, but they don't test for Suboxone. I had a prescription to it anyway, so it didn't matter. And, I'd go to court, and basically they were telling me that like my time was running up. My attorney Adam was like giving me no help whatsoever, like he would like lecture me. Like one time the DA was like talking shit about me. She's my age, this girl, and she was just like, well, pimping and pandering is not something we take lightly, Mr. Leone, going around and pimping out women in our town, like saying shit like that. And I was like, women? It was one woman. And Adam would be like, please don't do that. I was like, it was one woman. Women, fuck, pluralize that. I'm not some piece of shit. And so then, like, after court, Adam would be like, you can't do that. You know, and I'm like, why? You're letting that bitch talk shit about me. He's like, don't you call her a bitch. And it made it like really clear to me that they're all on the same team. I'm like, what do you, dude, you work for me. I'm your client. I can't talk. How can I not talk shit about? That's like the villain in this. She's the one that's against me. He's like, you're the one that did the crime. You're the one that's going to do the time. Felt like it was some like VHS, like, uh, you know, public service video that they make you watch like in high school, or like when you're like in county jail or in like DUI class or something. It's like the weirdest tone to take with me ever. So it was like a multifaceted thing that led me to start having an emotional breakdown. I was already paranoid, as I talked about, but it started getting worse and worse. And plus I had this like this really horrible therapist that seemed like she was out to get me. So although all of that was going on, some what kind of noise is that? What could they possibly be doing up there? It's crazy noises. It's so hot. I apologize. Even though there was a lot of bad stuff happening, there was a lot of good stuff happening as well. So I had a friend named Seth Ferrante, and I think I've talked about him on the channel before. He's a guy that he's a really interesting guy, and I've tried to have him come on my channel a lot, but he's got better stuff going on, I guess, than coming on my channel. You know, he like Viceland just did a little like mini documentary about him. It's called We'll Travel for Drugs. Seth's story was he's from Virginia, and he was selling weed and he was selling acid in the 90s. He's like in his mid 40s. He's actually Nikkos' godfather. I made him Nikkos' godfather. And Seth basically was supplying acid and pounds of weed to multiple colleges in Virginia and in the Washington, D.C. area. And one of the people that if I might be saying this wrong, but he had gotten set up, and I believe it was from like a Grateful Dead roadie that was selling acid for Seth, and he got busted by the feds, by the DEA. And this guy, this piece of shit, told on Seth. Seth got indicted by the feds for being an LSD kingpin and for selling marijuana. So he'd never been in trouble before. He goes to jail, you know, he gets arrested, goes to jail, and he starts asking people, he's like showing people his paperwork. He's like, hey, am I like in a lot of trouble for this? I don't know. You got me conspiracy to distribute LSD, conspiracy to distribute marijuana, and then, I don't know, so something they're charging me with being a drug kingpin. Everyone's like, oh yeah, you're going to get life. He's like, what? Like, yeah, you're going to get life. He's like, I've never been in trouble before. They're like, yeah, but they give you the kingpin role. And the kingpin title is basically an enhancement when they indict you by the Fed. So if you get busted, so I got busted for a heroin conspiracy. So they said that I was conspiring with an international cartel to sell heroin. Not true. We've gone through this a million times. If they throw the kingpin, so my mandatory minimum was 5 to 40 years. If they throw the kingpin role on you, you're fucked. You know, he had a 10 to life to start because of the weight that he had. And then the kingpin basically like doubles or triples that. So I think he was starting at like 25 years, which is considered life in many states. He's looking at a life sentence. So what he did is he bailed out and he went to this national park in Virginia, and he threw his wallet and some of his other possessions off a bridge into a river. And he had someone that he knows like call the police and be like, oh my God, I just saw somebody jump into the river. I think they killed themselves. He might be a fugitive too. No, they didn't say the fugitive part. But so when they came to look for this person that they had gotten a call that someone had jumped into the river, they, whatever they do, they rake the water or whatever, and they looked for the body and they found the wallet. Now the problem is he had thrown it in the wrong side. So they determined that it was a hoax because of the current there's no way that the wallet would, if someone had really jumped in the river, there's no way that his wallet and possessions that they found would be in the location that it was. They determined that it was a hoax. By this point, he had moved to Texas, and he was on the run, and he was still smuggling pounds of weed and other shit while he was in Texas. Hold on. Sorry. It's pissing me off. And he ended up getting caught in Texas as a fugitive. And they gave him 25 years. He got 25 years in federal prison, and he served 21 years. But while he was in prison, he became a journalist. He got his master's degree in journalism, and he started writing for Don Diva, which is a really popular magazine for like urban matters. You know, like a lot of rappers are in Don Diva. A lot of like drug kingpins are in there. And he started writing for Vice. I'm sure people know what Vice is. And he started writing for Huffington Post and other major publications. Anyway, probably published like 6 or 7 books while I was in there. One of them is called Street Legends, which is really good. It's about, you know, some of these like infamous drug kingpins that, you know, ran the streets. And then like a lot of rap songs were about, like Nicky Barnes, Supreme, Pappy Mason, people like that. Really great writer. And I had known who he was because I read an article that he was, because he was a journalist while I was in prison. And he was writing about some of the mistreatments that were going on. Because the way they treat you in prison is bullshit. You know, like a lot of places, they won't give you a pillow. And yeah, I mean, just like stuff like that, like inhumane stuff, put you in the hole or solitary confinement for like getting a dirty drug test, you know, when that should be reserved for like cannibals, like Hannibal Lecter. Like if you're like eating people's faces, yeah, you should probably be in solitary confinement. If you're like smoking weed and you get a dirty drug test, you do not deserve to be in the hole like that. That's fucking inhumane. It's wrong. And he was writing about some of those injustices, and they had put him in the hole just simply for writing, because they don't like that. Prisons don't like it when you're like exposing them. When you're like, well, on the surface, it looks like your everyday penitentiary. At night, day glow, butt fucking conga lines throughout the tears. It's whack. And then like, you know, they're exposed. But, you know, he'd expose like real stuff that they were doing, just like, you know, fucked up corruption stuff. So they put him in the hole just for simply reporting. And that's how I had first heard about him. I had already been out of prison. I probably first heard about Seth in like 2013, 2014 when I was already out. And I read an article. My ex-literary agent had written it about him, and it said that he was in the hole just for writing. I was like, what? That's bullshit. So I started like following his Twitter account that I think his wife was running. And anyway, make a long story short, eventually him and I, you know, I made contact with him, and I said, hey, like I've been following you for a long time, because I think he got out in like 2015 or 2016 maybe. And we became really good friends, and now he's Nikkos' godfather. But after he got out, he continued being a journalist, and he started working for Penthouse. He started working for Huffington Post. He's actually the guy that got me on Now Profit for the first time. He's done a lot. He's probably done more for my career than anybody else. If it wasn't for him, you guys probably would never know who I am. Probably people are like, that guy's a spoiled little bitch. You guys would know he's a spoiled little bitch if it wasn't for Seth. So give the guy some respect. So Seth had all these connections with the press. So now I'm involved with like a legitimate documentary because Jim Olds is involved, and he was the screenwriter of Fight Club. And Fight Club's one of my favorite movies, and a lot of people, I mean, it's a movie that a lot of people really treasure. It's like a very like highly artistic and cult celebrated film. So I had a real thing going on, and Seth said that he could get me some press coverage on it. So, you know, he got Penthouse to accept him doing a piece on me. It was going to be a feature article, you know, like my name was going to be on the cover. I have it. I got to show it. Hold on. This is a weird video. What the fuck? You're running out of content, bitch. I've showed it before, but that's the issue. So I wonder if I can like show stuff without like showing vaginas and boobs and stuff. But so it says, from ex-con to bestseller, The Tortured Life of Ryan Leone. My dad like marked the stuff in yellow. So, oh, whoa. Oh, well, can't show that. He wrote this. Who's that hot tan guy? Tortured life. Hold on. There's more. Me at Jeff. So that's Jeff's condo. Want to see that? That's the condo that we're talking about. Of course, shirtless. I was like, if you're gonna take a picture, I gotta look hot and tan. I wasn't that hot and tan, but I wasn't in bad shape either. Pretty good. Doesn't matter when you have a small little wiener. There's another picture that was used in the back of my book, and there's a picture of me and Karina. She's pregnant. That picture that was taken in Venice Beach. Anyway, cover of Penthouse. Pretty cool feature-length article. Anyway, the reason that I'm showing you that is that so he had gotten Penthouse to agree to cover me, and he also got Huffington Post. At the same time, Zach had introduced me to a guy named Tyler. Tyler worked for a magazine called Malibu Magazine. Malibu Magazine was pretty cool. You know, like they'd had like Anthony Kiedis from the Red Hot Chili Peppers on the cover, and I was trying to get a cover. I was trying to get a cover. I was trying to be on the cover of the magazine. So at that point, I was like, oh, I need a cover. You know, it started going to my head. So I had Penthouse, Huffington Post, Malibu Magazine, and then one of our big newspapers in Santa Barbara, the Santa Barbara Independent, decided to run an article about me as well. So all of a sudden, I went from being homeless, squatting in houses, to having a room in Jeff's place and having it being paid for. And I had all these magazines that were covering me, magazines and newspapers. So we started conceptualizing what the documentary should be, and Jim was going to write it. So he had some ideas of his own, and Zach decided that he wanted to direct it. He wanted to make his directorial debut, but we needed more content, you know? And, you know, with the documentary, there's archival footage, and there's also like B-roll. And B-roll is like shit like me, like golfing, you know, me like sewing pillow and quilts, me making like paper mache vaginas. But I don't know why I said that. But you know, just like footage of me doing stuff. So anyway, we started thinking about stuff that we could do, and we also needed some archival footage. Now my dad had basically videotaped my entire childhood. My entire childhood was videotaped. He always had a camcorder, like every Christmas, birthdays, me riding a bike for the first time, lots of stuff, which is like really kind of cool when you can juxtapose it with me smoking crack with like trannies and stuff. You know, it's like a slideshow, and it shows me like opening a guitar and like the baseball bat, and then there's like one, and there's like some like heavy set tranny, like, you know, like Eskimo kissing me, and I just have like a tube. And we thought that would like be like edgy and artistic. And I knew that there was some archival footage that existed. Now you guys have seen some of that archival footage because I had posted videos of me. Like there's one where I'm telling the story about when I stabbed the skinhead, and I'm in like an old car. I have like really weird acne. I have this zit on my ear that looks like I'm wearing some sort of like hoop earring, but it's just like some like blistery acne, like blister pimple that popped out of my ear because when I'm on heroin, like weird, like fucking fungus and shit like pops out of my face. I think I'm like allergic to heroin or something. So that footage from that era, there's 2 videos on my channel. One's like a day in the life, and I forget what the other one's called. But anyway, that was footage that this guy Stephen Gabriel had shot years ago. And I told you guys the story when he came to do Cop Busters, and then he saw me. I was selling 50 pounds of mushrooms. Like when he first showed up at my place, I'm running around. I have a 32 Cobra gun in my waistline. I'm smoking crack. And he's like, oh my God, this is way more interesting than Cop Busters. I'm just going to film you because you're a fucking loser. And I was like, okay, yeah, make me famous. Watch me smoke crack. And then basically him and I had a falling out. I was trying to like make him stay with me. You know, I like pulled the gun out. I was like, no, you're going to stay here and you're going to make me famous and you're going to make videos of me. And he's like, okay. And then he escaped. We have like all of this on video too. This is like not just shit. I'm not joking about this. So, you know, after all that, I never saw that footage again. When I got out of prison in 2013, I was talking to Jeff on the phone one night, and, you know, there's pictures of Jeff shooting heroin with me too from that period. And Jeff was like, what do you think ever happened to that Stephen Gabriel guy? What do you think happened to all that footage of us like doing drugs and stuff? And I'm like, I don't know. If we haven't seen it yet, probably doesn't exist anymore. He probably didn't do anything with it. Somehow Jeff searched YouTube and he found a couple like short form documentaries that this guy Stephen Gabriel had made about me. One of them was called Stephen Gabriel Heroin Movie. It's still on YouTube. You can look that up. You'll see it. I have the same video on my channel. And I had tried to contact him because when I first saw that video, it was in 2013, and I was sober, and I was like, oh, that is, and as a narcissistic as I was like, oh, I look like shit. That needs to be removed. I didn't care that I was shooting heroin in the video. I just cared because I had acne and I looked horrible. I weighed like 126 pounds and I just looked like a complete weirdo. We couldn't find Stephen Gabriel. That was back in 2013. So now, sorry, it's so hot right now. So now it's 2017 and we have the documentary in motion, and we try to start looking for Gabriel again. We had looked for him, like I said, in 2013, and we couldn't track him down. Finally, I find him on Facebook. I type Stephen Gabriel, can't find it. Then I do Steve Gabriel, can't find it. Somehow, I don't remember exactly like the combination of words or like how I found him, but somehow I found him on Facebook, and I sent him a friend request, and he accepted it immediately. So he messages me in Messenger, and he's like, "Oh my God, you're alive?" And I was like, "Yeah." And that's the first thing you say to me. He's like, "Dude, I swear to God, I thought you were dead." He's like, "I have been telling people for years that you were dead." He was like, "You're the most hardcore junkie I've ever met in my life. I thought for sure, since I never heard from you again, that you were dead." I was like, "No, I've been in prison for 5 years." He's like, "Oh, checks out." I was like, "Oh, thanks." I was like, "Where are you?" So I guess apparently he was in a mental hospital in Texas. He was doing like one of those experimental drug trials where like they'll like test experimental drugs on you, and they'll be like, "Yeah, we're just gonna boof this new antidepressant up your butthole, and we just want to see if it kills you or not. And if it doesn't, we'll give you $7,000 after like a 6-week clinical trial. You game?" He's like, "Yeah, I love money, sure." And people really do shit like that. People die from stuff like that all the time. So obviously he was in a bad place financially, and that's something that that's so something typical of him to do. Like, I call him and talked to him in years, and he's at some psych ward doing like experimental clinical drug trials. But he was really excited to hear from me, and I told him all about the documentary, and I told him that I had optioned my book to Will de los Santos, who wrote Spun. And when I told him that, he was like, "No way." He's like, "You know Santos?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "When that guy was homeless, he used to live in my car in Hollywood. And I got really mad at him because he deleted all this footage on my camcorder and replaced it with hardcore porn. And like, he was sleeping in my car, and I'd always catch him like twacked out and beating off the porn on my camcorder. This is Gabriel swears this is true. And I know Santos enough. I would bet a lot of money that it is true." Santos vehemently denies it. "That never happened. I don't even know that guy." Santos, that's something you would do. He's like, uh, "It's not true. I don't watch porn when I'm on meth." I'm like, "Oh, of course not. Of course you don't. You do projects, right?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, projects. Fuck porn. Fuck you. I'm not some weirdo." He's a total weirdo. I love him. Santos, you're probably watching that. I love you, but let's keep it real. So I asked him about the footage. That was the purpose of reaching out to him, because we were hoping that since he had those 2 short form documentaries, maybe other footage existed. Because he had come and he had shot hours and hours and hours of footage of me debaucherous stuff. I got cotton fever. There was footage of me throwing up. There was footage of me, like getting in really bad fights with Jenny. There was pictures of me with like kilos of cocaine, kilos of Molly, all sorts of shit, 50 pounds of mushrooms, footage of me running around with this gun. And I asked him about it. He said, "I do have it, but it was in a storage unit in Austin, Texas, that he had lived with his mom for a while, and that's where all of his tapes were. And, he never had enough money to get it out of storage." So I told Zach about this. And, it was interesting because there would be a lot of revelations that would happen. throughout the time that we were filming this stuff. We'd find like new evidence. I get some like murder trial, new archival footage or new materials would kind of like we'd like discover them, or we'd find them, stuff that I thought had been lost forever. And this is one of those situations. And Gabriel was telling us that he had like hundreds of hours of footage of all this stuff. And it like, this would make the documentary, this right here. Um, all of this footage, because there's a lot of crazy stuff on there. So I convinced Zach that we needed Steve to be one of the editors. Zach already had a team of like very impressive editors and filmers. Remember I told you in the last video, like the guys, I'm like, yeah, what are you doing? They're like, oh, it's just at Dr. Dre's. Do you have any cocktail sauce for my shrimp? I'm like, no. Oh, Dre had that shit. It's all good. Let's just film stuff. I'm like, okay, weirdos. So we, he still had like probably I think like a week or two left in this clinical trial, and we made plans that we were going to fly him out. He was in Texas, and we were going to fly him out. He was in Austin, and that's where the storage play. That's where the tapes were that were in the storage garage or whatever. So we made the plan that he would finish his clinical trial, and we would fly him out to California. He'd come live with Jeff and I for a while. This is what all those other magazine shoots were going on, because for like Penthouse, like all those pictures I just showed you, like a professional photographer has to come out and like you have to do these shoots. They're selects. It was really like weird, like going from being homeless to like, okay, look at the camera, look fierce, and I'd be like, that's not fierce. Look fierce. Look fierce, like somebody owes you money, you piece of shit. I'm like, and that would like show up in the magazine. I don't know. That's like how they do it. It's really weird. They like yell at you. They're like look fierce, bitch, look fierce, and you're like, and I don't know how, but they like get kind of like hot tan pictures out of you, and it's just how it works. So we had like this whole plan set up where he was going to fly out, bring the tapes, but the problem was they were on mini DVs, which are like the little teeny, cassettes. Like it's a technology that's like archaic. It's like outdated. It's antiquated technology. So we had to buy something called a deck, which essentially converts the mini DV to it digitalizes them. So we had it all planned. Now around this time, my friend had died that I was in rehab with, this guy named Richard. Now I didn't know him that well. He was just some guy that I was in rehab with, and he would always tell me really funny stories. Really, all the stories that he would tell me were about cheating on his wife. And that's it. We'd be watching football. I'd be like, did I ever tell you about Puerto Rico? No, Richard, you didn't. He'd be like, black chick in Puerto Rico, 2007. Let me tell you about it. So I'm at this nightclub. I meet this black chick. I go back to her room, find out she's a hooker, fuck her anyway, go back to my wife's room where she's staying in. I get in bed with her. We make out a little bit. I'm too drunk to fuck her. Plus, I already fucked the black prostitute. Then I go to the bathroom. I take a piss. The condom blows up like a balloon. Black chick in Puerto Rico. I'd be like, oh, all right. And he'd just tell me story after story after story like this. So he ended up dying. And he was a good dude, I mean, besides all that stuff. But I mean, he's an alcoholic, and he cheated on his wife all the time. It's like, not like that's like, there's worse things, You could be a rapist, be a chomo, could be a snitch. Cheating on your wife, although it's not something I do, it's like not the worst thing that I don't know. I mean, you never know the circumstances, Maybe his wife had like a permanent yeast infection or something. There's always mitigating circumstances that we don't know about. There's more than meets the eye, is what I'm trying to say. But he had passed away, and he was like a hardcore alcoholic, and he had died from cirrhosis of the liver. And it was sad. He was only like 40. He was pretty successful, and he was just a hardcore alcoholic, and he was one of those like binge drinkers, It's not like he was like leaving Las Vegas where he'd just be wasted all the time and like, stumbling around, but he'd go on these really bad runs. And what had happened is he had gotten cirrhosis because he had gone on so many different runs throughout the years. And the last run he went on, he just drank himself to death because he had cirrhosis. and he died. And I found out because of Facebook. You know, I hate that about Facebook. Like, you're going through your feed and you're like looking at all these memes and you're like, oh, that's hilarious. And then like you see like some picture and it's like in like caps with a bunch of exclamation marks and they're like, Richard's dead. And you're like, it's just like, what the fuck? It's like, I don't know. It's weird. That's how you find out that a lot of people pass away, unless it's someone that's really close to you. But it, you know, if it's kind of someone that you don't know that well like that, that's how you find out, and it kind of catches you off guard. So anyway, I'm in this weird phase where I'm doing all these like photo shoots, and like I said, it's going to my head. And when he passes away, I tell Zach, I'm like, Zach, this is really good opportunity for footage. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I can rent a suit. Karina and I can go there and we can go film it and we can get footage of the funeral. You know, it adds, it contextualizes the addiction thing. This is somebody that I knew that I actually died while we were filming the documentary about my addiction. Zach's like, I love it. I was like, I love it too. Let's film it. So he couldn't make it, and that's when he introduced me to that guy Tyler. And Tyler ended up being a really great guy. He was not like me, as in he's just like a normal, nice person. He's not like some junkie, and I think he was always a little weirded out by me because I'm just so scummy, you know, especially like the first time I met him, which I'm telling you about right now. So we drove down to LA. My mom had given us her car to drive down there, Karina and I, you know, because my friend had passed away. And I'm like, Mom, I got to go to this funeral. And I got a suit and everything. And we go down there and we got down there too late. You know, we missed the funeral. And I had called he had like multiple sons. He was 40, but he had he had kids when he was like 16. So his kids were like, you know, I don't know. They were like 24. You know, they weren't like young enough where you couldn't have like, you know, an adult conversation with them. And I called and asked them. I told them about my documentary and I was like, can I, you know, immortalize him by putting him in my documentary and, you know, showing some of the bad end results of addiction. And someone was like, absolutely. It's like, see, I spent time with Richard in rehab, like a lot of time, you know, we got pretty close there. And like, it's the kind of thing that Richard would have been totally down for, you know. It wasn't something that I thought was completely tasteless. In retrospect, I do think it was tasteless and I shouldn't have done this, but at the time I really didn't have like the worst intentions. I just wanted good B-roll footage. And I was like, this is it. This is going to be poignant. There's going to be some poignant, visceral shit. So we show up to this funeral and we miss it. We're late. And this is how tacky I am. We get there and there's still people there. And they're kind of, you know, it was like a memorial service where they have like the cardboard poster board of him. And there's everybody standing around in like, you know, their black suits and everyone's mourning. But it didn't really look like anyone was sad. It was just looked like, you know, it was like everyone was kind of drinking heavily. So I meet Tyler for the first time. He's like, he's a quiet guy. You know, he's one of those guys that's just quiet, polite, professional. And he's actually gone on to be a DP. He's a incredibly talented photographer. He did all of that photography for the Penthouse Spread, for Huffington Post, for Gonzo Today, for the Santa Barbara Independent. He did like all of my photography for that period. He's a really talented photographer. And he didn't really ask questions. I'm like, okay, you know, bring the red cam, bring the tripod. And even though we missed the funeral, we can just kind of make it look like we didn't. And I'll get up on the podium and I'll start just making up a eulogy. I mean, that is pretty sleazy of me, you know. In hindsight, looking at that, it's like, Jesus, that's pretty thirsty of me. Like, we missed it, but there's still people here. Fuck it. It's a great opportunity for me to look like I care. So I jump up and I'm like on this podium and I'm basically just saying nice stuff about Richard. And I'm one of those guys that can like improvise things like that. Okay. You know, and I've had to. I've like actually read eulogies at funerals that I didn't write. I just kind of like jump up and just start like saying stuff. And, you know, in this particular situation, I just jumped up and started doing this eulogy while he set up the tripod and he's filming me. And I'm just like, Richard, was an amazing human being. Richard inspired me to do better. And like, there's all these people kind of like drinking and mingling, and like they hear me at the podium, and everyone kind of just stops. He's looking at me like, the fuck is this? You know, because there's like this camera on me, and I'm just like going on and on about how Richard was my brother, and like, you know, I don't even think I had Richard's phone number. You know, it was just like someone I was in rehab with, and we were Facebook friends. No, I hung out with him a couple times. That's not true. Um, you know, like I went to barbecue with him and his family a couple times. I knew him. I didn't know him well enough to go exploit his fucking funeral like I was doing. And this was like the beginning of the end for me. This is when I started doing weird stuff like this, and I started getting kind of way out there. And as soon as I'm done with the eulogy, I see his girlfriend from the time. You know, I'd met her because she would come to the rehab for like family day or whatever. And I went up to her and I hugged her. I was like, I'm so sorry. Her name was Linda. I'm so sorry, Linda. And she's like, sorry. Fuck that pig. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, look, you see her? And there's like another girl at the other corner. I was like, yeah. She's like, he was fucking her the whole time. I was like, really? Like acting like I didn't know that he was just a total pig like that. I'm like, really? Sorry to hear that. And she's like, you see her? I'm not making, she points to some lady that had to be like, I don't know, late 60s or something. I was like, Linda, come on. She's like, oh, yeah, she looks like an innocent old lady, doesn't she? I'm looking at her. She looks like a little like sweet librarian. She has like these little teeny glasses on. And I'm like, she's like, straight slut. I'm like, seriously? Richard was fucking her? She's like, I fucking found pictures in his phone. Like, of that bitch? And like I said it too loud, and like everyone like kind of looks at me. She's like, shh. And I was like, basically, I was like at this place, and it was like, you know, the remnants of all this like evidence of him being a womanizer, and it's all kind of like materializing because there's different women that he was sleeping with at this funeral. And I go there and I do this like faux eulogy because I think that it'll make good B-roll footage. Pretty sleazy if you ask me. And then afterwards, you know, I sat in this like shaded area and I did this like really powerful interview where I was like, yeah, I lost another friend today. And I know that like you guys are like, God, what, this guy's just a complete scumbag. He's just, you know, making fun of his dead friend. But honestly, if you knew the guy, you'd understand that like he he would think that that's hilarious. You know what I mean? Like Paul really was one of my closest friends. And what's ironic about when he passed away in November, I loved Paul. Paul is like one of my best friends. You know, one of my top two or three for sure. Him, Jeff, now Nick is one of them. This guy Preston. It's like I have a very like small group of like my closest. And the about a week before he had passed away, Paul, he had called me, and I've talked about this a bunch of times, but he called me, and we usually had just like goofy calls because you know he had some cognitive slip at the end there because he got addicted to dust off, and he kind of had some long-term brain damage because of it. So he wasn't the same Paul at the end. He was suffering for a while, but he was the nicest guy, and like he really was. He was like a brother to me. And the last time we talked, we had a really serious conversation. It was almost weird and like eerily prophetic. I think I don't know, maybe he knew that he was about to go. And he was telling me that you know, at one time he had tried to kill himself and he was thinking about committing suicide. And he was crazy enough to do it. He would, you know, he's the kind of guy that would, you know, he didn't really do stuff for attention. If he's going to do something, he's just going to do it. You know, there's people that are like, I'm going to kill myself. Yeah, I'm going to kill myself. I swear to God, I'm going to kill myself. I go, why are you still talking about it? What do you mean? And there's people that just like go for it. There's like, fuck it, I'm killing myself, and they do. Paul wasn't selfish, so he knew that you know, suicide would hurt people like me, people like his widow, like his family. It would hurt them. And one time he had called me and he had, you know, told me that he felt like killing himself. You know, and he was doing that because he didn't want to. You know, he wanted me to talk him out of it. And I was like, well, why don't you do it? I said, don't talk about it, be about it, bitch. And he started laughing. You know, we had this like morbid sense of humor, and he was thanking me. It's like, you know, I don't think you realized it then, but you really did save me. You know, he's like, you made me laugh, and it made me not want to leave. It made me not want to. It made me want to hang in there a little bit longer. You know, he's like, I hadn't laughed for so long, and then you said that, and him and I had so many like inside jokes. Sometimes laughter can be really healing like that. And you know, and I was telling him, I said, "Don't die, Paul. Don't be a fucking poser. Posers die." We'd always say that from SLC Punk, which is ironic because James Marandino was actually slated to be the director of the Wasting Talent film. But anyway, neither here nor there. Um, and I told Paul, I said, "Look, if you die, I'm going to have to exploit your funeral. You know that I will." And we were like really laughing about it. And then he did pass away, and I did get to film the eulogy. But the irony and the reason I'm bringing all this up is Richard was to get B-roll footage. He was my friend, but it was kind of exploitative. And looking back, I shouldn't have done that. It was sleazy, and I'm truly sorry about it. I shouldn't have done it. I felt like it was a bad thing to do. Paul passed away, and I was heartbroken. And I went and I read the eulogy, and we filmed it, and that's probably how we're going to end the documentary. We have that footage. But I think that's what made it so much more powerful, because years before that, when we first started filming the documentary, I tried to like make this contrived thing to make it more emotional. And then this actually ended up happening with Paul. But this was all like the start of the end. And, you know, it's like people keep telling me, well, your stories are getting so boring. Just go to prison. We just want to hear about group showers and nudity with dudes. That shit's cool. Well, all of this is leading up to that. And this is the start of my breakdown, my emotional breakdown, where I called the FBI. I thought my parole officer was trying to kill me. I had audible hallucinations. I called the governor of California and was like begging him to protect me because I thought my parole officer was trying to kill me, that he was trying to poison my food and shit. Oh, yeah, I lost it. There's a lot of videos of it. I've been putting them on Patreon. Thank you guys. We'll get into it on the next video. Just want to get something to you tonight. I appreciate you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out patreon.com/Ryan Leone. Thank you. See you again soon. Palabra.